that I might be forgiven. We might cancel this cocktail welcome because it makes people not to go to bed early. So we're starting the second day with very few people, and I know people will be coming. And I hope that everyone slept very well. So we continue our conference today with our second keynote speaker. But I need to make some few announcements before I introduce our speaker today. This evening is the dinner, the closing dinner. I hope it doesn't become like yesterday, so that people can go to bed early and be able to go home. The dinner will take place next door where we had a cocktail. And also, when you come in for the dinner, you will be given your certificate of attendance. And that will be your second proof. Yesterday, you took pictures to show your university that you were here. And so, this evening, we'll give you your certificate that shows that you were here as well. And you attended ICBMD 2019. And also, at the closing section, we will announce where the 2020 ICBMD will take place. And once again, we thank University of Namibia and the Business School for hosting ICBMD 2019 and assisting us to identify the various speakers to speak at the 2019 conference. And so next year, when we move to another venue, it is the responsibility of that university to identify speakers for us. Now, having said that, I have the privilege this morning to introduce the second speaker. But on the stage, we still have the director of Namibia Business School. And yesterday, and I still have to apologize, we have the International University of Management, whose chairman was here with us at the cocktail session. And I forgot to introduce the representative of the university here, who is now sitting on the stage, and I don't have much information about him, so you don't mind, Doc, introducing yourself. Yeah.
And I'm very proud to be one. So definitely we will be sharing, and what I can say is that definitely I'm proud of this coming together. Thank you very much.
Okay, and yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Can I just hold it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can just hold it. Yeah. Because there will be questions and answers, and you may have to answer some few questions.
No problem.
Colleagues, I have the honor to introduce our speaker today, and you all heard what other speakers said today. Now, yesterday, there will be some people who are leaving today, and if you are leaving today because we need to Afrikaners will say, to hoy you to the airport. So if you are leaving today and you want to be hoyed to the airport, please give your name to Linda and your time of departure so that we could organize the services for you. Right. Thank you. We have in our midst today our second speaker, who is Mr. Sakaria, who is the CEO of Agribank of Namibia, and he became the CEO 1st August 2016. And he is widely regarded as a highly effective and transformational business leader. Mr. Sakaria previously led the transformation of Namibia Post Office, or Post Limited, as its chief executive officer, and later served as the chief executive officer of operations at Old Mutual in Namibia, and as a managing director of Old Mutual short-term insurance company. In the later role, Mr. Sakaria led the successful integration of the former Mutual and Federal Insurance Company of Namibia Limited into Old Mutual Holdings. He is also the chairman of MMI Namibia Holdings and serves as an independent non-executive director on Mutual Short-Term Insurance of Namibia. Mr. Sakaria holds a Bachelor of Commerce degree and from the University of Namibia, and a Master of Science degree in Finance and Economics from University of London, and has completed an Executive Development Program from University of Cape Town. In addition, Mr. Sakaria has completed various strategy and leadership courses from the University of Wits and also INSEAD in France and Old Mutual Business School. Colleagues, let us welcome our second speaker for today, Mr. Sakaria.
Thank you very much, Director of Ceremonies. Maybe just to add as well that I am born and bred Namibian. I'm born about 9 hours drive from here in the north of Namibia, in a village there. Namibia is quite a big country actually. And I had, in the past 18 years, had opportunities in various executive roles in Namibia that I've used to learn and make a contribution to our country. And I think, as has been mentioned, I tend to get attracted to turnarounds. So I have done a couple of turnarounds and startups. I've done the turnaround at Namibia Post Office, and I think more than 10 years later, it remains quite a successful enterprise and probably the only profitable post office in Africa. So, and I have also done a turnaround, as was mentioned, at the short-term insurance company in Old Mutual, and have started a lending business there about 10 years ago that is now probably a star performer in that group, with a loan book of more than $1 billion Namibia dollars, or R1 billion if you come from South Africa. And of course now, for the last 3 years, so I'm busy with this deep one at Agribank, which is a state-owned enterprise. So I've been asked to basically give an Agribank perspective, to pragmatic business solutions by Africa for Africa, which I've translated really into a couple of key objectives and key messages. So for me, I understand this to be about really just demonstrating the work that we have been doing at Agribank in fulfillment of our mandate as a public enterprise. And I'll try and give you some historical context. I'll try and give you some of the actions that we have been busy with over the last 3 to 4 years. I'll always be talking about 3 to 4 years. So I've been there 3 years and the new board has been there 4 years. So I think that's really when the action started with the board, and the board getting a new CEO and going about a new strategy and set of actions. But I'll also share with you some of the remaining challenges as well as the roadmap, because my argument is that if a state-owned enterprise or public enterprise, as we call it these days in Namibia, is properly managed, it can deliver value. I think that in this country, in South Africa, and probably in many other countries, state-owned enterprises are typically beset by challenges of inefficiencies, by wastage, and constant need for bailouts. But if it is properly managed and properly led and directed, this need not be the case. It can actually add value, and that is really what my narrative this morning is seeking to demonstrate. Because if it can do that, then it can provide local solutions that can be useful to the economy, to create jobs, to create employment, to provide products, and these can also be benchmarks for the rest of Africa. And that is really what it is. I think that there's a lot that we have done, there's a lot that we've been doing, but I think time and prudence requires or dictate that we really just focus on the high-level touch points. I can never really touch on everything that we have done or are doing because either there's not enough time or it's not prudent for me to actually do that. So that, in a nutshell, is the context of my conversation. Now, but let's first begin with the basics. It's very easy to assume that everybody understands who we are. Not everyone is from Namibia, and even those who are from Namibia, not everyone necessarily has followed Agribank. So who are we? We are a state-owned enterprise or public enterprise, as we call them these days. Previously, they were called also parastatals, and we operate under an Act of Parliament. Has been amended in 2003, Act number 5 of 2003. And our mandate is really to finance agriculture and related activities. So it's the whole value chain, as I'll try and demonstrate later. And related activities would talk to things like aquaculture or tourism. So some farms are not used for livestock production or horticulture, they are used for game, and they are used for tourism, and we would have appetite to look at that as well. We have got about 146 employees countrywide. We operate from 7 branch offices in the country, covering the south, covering the east, covering the center, the near north, and we've got 3 branches in the north proper. One in northeast, one in Rundu, which is sort of northeast still, and then we've got one in Oshakati, which is north central. And then we have a head office component where people like myself who provide support to the branches sit. So finance, marketing, human resources, and all of those sit in head office. We've got a loan book of about 2.7 billion Namibia dollars currently, and the bank has total assets of just over 3 billion Namibia dollars. So if you come from South Africa, I'm sure you know by now it's a one-to-one relationship. So if I say $3 billion, it's not US dollars, it's the same as Rand. So, and then we serve both what we call commercial farms or farmers as well as communal farmers. So our country is divided in 2. It's basically commercial farms where you can buy the land, you can have title to it, you can use it as collateral, and you can produce and sell to the market. And then you have also communal areas which are actually sort of owned by the state. You have the right to farm on it. You can have that right. You can even have a 99-year lease, but you don't own the land, you don't own the title, and therefore you cannot actually use it as collateral. So those are communal farms or communal farmers. and we'll say a little bit more about some of the solutions that we've put in place for those type of people. And we offer competitively priced loan products and attractive repayment periods. I think if you went to a commercial bank in this country, they'll probably say if you want to buy farmland, you have 15 to 20 years to pay for it. We would say if you want to buy farmland and you're buying it for the first time, you've got 25 years to pay for it. If you went to a commercial bank today and they say, you want a farm, so they will probably ask you to pay prime, which is currently 10.5 plus some margin based on the risk, and we will say, well, we will ask for 9.5, which is a whole percentage point below prime. That requires us to actually have diversified sources of loan book funding that would then enable us to provide that kind of competitive pricing to our clients. So what products do we offer? So still at the basics. We finance the whole agricultural value chain. I think the primary resource everybody needs is land. So farmland is our biggest part, or it's the biggest part of our loan book. And then, of course, primary production on that land. So if you want to do livestock, we would finance that. If you want to do agronomy, we would also finance that. And anything else that you need on the farm in terms of infrastructure, whether that is water infrastructure or power infrastructure or irrigation infrastructure, the vehicles and equipment that you need, we would also finance that. And then, of course, we also provide no collateral loans, and I'll say a little bit more about that later, and value addition. So basically from land to what you produce on land to adding value to those products. So that whole chain, we're quite happy to finance. I think maybe before I get to a key thing is this. Now, for us, the basis of credit extension for a farmer, which I like to call a producer, is actually the ability of your farming enterprise to pay back the loan. All right, so that is the basis. It's not whether you are employed, whether you earn a salary, and so on, but is what you are going to do able to actually repay the loan that you are looking for. And we would then run our cash flows, and we would determine whether you have enough productive animals or not, and whether you need to add productive animals will determine whether the yields that you would get in terms of whatever crop you want to grow would be sufficient to actually repay the loan. And if everything stacks up, then it's a go for us. So that is really the basis, that you should be able to pay for the loan from your farming activities. So if you've got a job and you can basically use that to help you to cover some of your repayment, that's actually a bonus for us. So I thought I should just point that out because it's actually quite important for us. Now later on, I'll speak about training and mentorship because we realize that it's not just about credit, it's actually about skills as well, and it's about knowledge, and it's about having that to actually try and make it successful. Now, 3 years ago, it was important for me coming in August that by the end of September we've got a strategy, 5-year strategy, and that's our strategy, Dagwood, in a nutshell. And our vision is very clear. We want to catalyze the transformation of agriculture in this country so that everybody can effectively enjoy quality of life by engaging in agriculture. And the way that we try and do that is really by providing innovative and affordable financing solutions that cover the whole value chain of agriculture. And there are 5 key pillars that are important for us in our strategy. The one is the customer, so we need to make sure that we understand who our customers are. So we've set up quite a strong research team in Agribank that is always looking at customers and customer wishes and taste and preferences and needs, and doing ongoing measures, and also looking specifically at specific sectors from time to time, of agriculture, so that we fully understand what is going on, and when we make decisions, we understand what is going on. When we tweak our products or introduce new products, we understand what we are doing. So understanding the customer is very important for us. And introducing products that talk to their needs is also very important for us. And just making sure that we gain new customers and take customers away from our competitors, but also go out in areas where our competitors would not necessarily go, because we've got a developmental mandate as well. And I'll talk to some of the products that we've got on board now for that. Financial sustainability is important. Now, our primary goal is not to make obscene profits, but it's very important for us that at least we sustain ourselves. And we do that by making sure that we grow. So the loan book must always grow, which means that you must always, at any time, a pipeline of new business. You must make sure you move to approvals. You must make sure that you disburse the loans, because that's when you begin to earn interest income, and that interest income must grow. You must make sure that the loans that you give, you collect. And I think there has been quite a challenge in this country for people to believe that for a state-owned bank, if they give you a loan, you need to pay it back. And I think that is really, for the last 3 years, one of our key challenges. We are making very good progress on that, and we need to make good progress on that. So getting the money back is very important for us. And then just simple things like managing expenses and making sure at least we wash our own face. It's not about profits, but we need to be profitable at a basic level. So financial sustainability is very, very important for us. And then, of course, our people or our employees is a pillar. It's very key that we make sure that whenever we have an opportunity to hire, we get the right people on board. So, you've spent a lot of time, if you get the wrong person, to actually try and get that person out of the way. So attraction is very important, especially for me at key levels. So we can't compromise at that. It's also very key that when we have those people on board, we performance manage them. And you'll see later, one of the early things that we had to introduce was a performance management system. And that we support them by way of training and development, but that we also introduce discipline. It's very important that people cannot just do what they want and get away with it. That we also introduce recognition and rewards. And that is very important for us in this business, as I'm sure it is in others as well. And then, of course, the other pillar is governance. Now, when you run a bank, you have to be very solid in terms of your risk management. So we had to actually get the skills on board to do that and introduce a whole risk management framework. You have to make sure that you are strong on compliance with the laws, with the regulations, with your own policies. And we also had to make sure that we get the right skills there into the business to do that for us. You have to make sure that you've got a very strong internal audit function. And you have to make sure that you actually do your financials on time. You go through audits. We don't do qualified audits. So, and we must make sure that we have very clear lines of responsibilities within the board structures. So the board committees all have clear charters, and they all know what they need to do and where the boundaries are. So that's very important. And then, of course, contributing to the transformation or to the social and economic transformation of our country. The communal farmers must be in. So we need to get around the whole issue around no collateral. So that's important for us. And the products that we introduce must talk to that. So we need to make sure that we support students in this country who want to study agriculture-related fields, because agriculture should really be a key pillar of the economy, and a whole lot of other things. So initiatives in any of these pillars will always change, but it's important that those remain our key focus areas. Now, you are not meant to see this. I could have broken it up into 2 slides to make it visible, but the idea is that it's there. You can always read it, but I want you to actually listen to me talking to the slide rather than trying to read it. So what I've tried to do here is really to give you a sense of some of the historic challenges and what we have tried to do over the last while. Now, this being a state-owned enterprise, I think some of the things that we found, or I found, was there was no performance-driven culture. All right? So you can do anything with your time. It's okay if you do it. It's also okay if you don't do it. There are no consequences. There are no measures. Nobody really understands what's happening in the business. Nobody knows whether we are making a profit or loss. And, branch manager doesn't know whether they are making a profit or loss, so it's okay. all right, as long as they fill in certain forms from time to time. So organizational culture was not performance driven. And that's a big problem because you actually cannot begin to develop solutions that can add value locally and be benchmarks for Africa. The collections rate, the loans are given, and I think in the early years, the support from Treasury, National Treasury was quite good. So the transfers every year were quite good. And as long as you got those and some people volunteered to pay back, you are okay. All right? But we've seen the last 4 years, so you've basically seen a very dramatic drop in those transfers, with some years actually recording zero. And so you need to make sure that you get the money back. But even if you actually had lots of money, the principle is you need to get that money back. So low collections rate and very high arrears rate. 20 to 22% of the loan book is the arrears rate. And it's quite difficult to catch up quickly when somebody is in arrears for 10, 15, 20 years. All right? Pay they must do, but you need to understand it's going to take a long time, and you need to understand where they had 25 years, they probably end up paying 40 years this loan. All right? Now, we, as I've said, had declining annual transfers from Treasury, which was a challenge. So there's no business approach to operations. One of the guys who has stayed in the business for a long time, we were having a conversation, and we were really trying to dissect the organization. And he put it quite nicely. He said, I think our challenge has been that we had no business acumen. So, and I was happy when he said it, because that's exactly what it was. And then, of course, the growth in the business was quite slow. So growth in the loan book, new business was quite slow, and you will see a slide later. And the challenge is if your income doesn't grow rapidly enough to cover the growth in expenses, you've got a problem, because those jaws are going to close on you. And that was quite a challenge. But at the same time, we have seen rapid expense growth. So what the business did was, at some point, they retrenched everybody, they restructured, and they started hiring again. And then as they started hiring, they hired more and more people, and people felt they were not adequately paid, and they thought, okay, so let's regrade. And then they did a regrading exercise, and everybody came out on higher grades. Now their pay had to go up as well. So you started seeing expense growth actually going up quite rapidly over the last number of years as well. And then, of course, because of no collections, bad debt provisions were worsening, and consequently, you have to write off some of that, especially where you had no collateral cover or insufficient collateral cover. Operational inefficiencies were also a problem. So put in your application. So 9 years later, maybe 9 years is an exaggeration, 9 months later, we come back and we say, well, we need your ID as well. In all of that. Okay, now 3 months later we come and say, okay, but we need to verify your stock. So we must now come and count your stock and all of those things. So it could take forever and all of that. And generally just poor brand image. And you will see later in one of the slides. Now, what are some of the key actions that we actually implemented? I think it was very important that we rapidly get to a very clear and robust strategy for the business. So 5-year strategy, and that was really underpinned by annual reviews. So we have to look at it every year. Is it still relevant? Is there something that we need to change? And what is it that we need to change, and how do we need to change it? And it was important for me that within 2 months, that strategy was actually in place. And it's underpinned also by annual business plans. So every year we must have a business plan, a operational budget, as well as a capital budget to actually support that strategy. And we need to do that without fail. We also introduced a enterprise-wide performance management system. So the second half of that 2016 financial year, we actually had that as well. And twice a year as a minimum, we need to put people through that. And I think they are quite liking it now, because it focuses them. And then, of course, we also implemented an employee recognition scheme. So we have to look at different jobs. We have to look at some key measures. We have to lift those out, give some weights, So on a monthly basis, we actually measure people on this, and we recognize for each department who's the employee of the department, who's the controller or specialist of the month, and who's the team leader of the month. And there it ends. So managers don't participate in that. And you can see the competition that it sort of puts within the enterprise. And we once a month get together and we announce who are the winners, and we hand out these certificates. And we do the same also for the quarter. And that's quite important actually to sustain performance. And then of course we implemented frequent and robust business performance reviews. So where there was actually no system of determining what are the key metrics that we need to look at, and frequently or on a frequent basis actually reviewing what is happening, we introduced that. So once a month, ExCo must have this in-depth discussion. Once a week, ExCo has very quick discussions. Once a quarter, the management committee, which is ExCo plus next level, needs to go through the business review, and this includes also the branch managers from the regions, so that we actually take a dive into what is going on. Everyone understands, everyone faces the questioning, everyone provides the answers, and everyone really know that they need to jack up their game. And that's very important to have a hold on the business. I think we also had to make some changes to the executive team. So you never can just do it on the same basis. So whenever opportunities come up, you make sure that you get strong people on board. There may also be times when you actually have to ask some people to leave one way or the other. But you really need to actually make sure that you have the right team and you can drive forward. So reinforcement of the team is very important. Leadership development, we had to actually take the whole team through some form of leadership development last year. And then exposure and assignments. So we would give people specific projects that they need to actually run with, and so on. And then we had to focus on growth. So we could not go on the same pedestrian basis if we wanted to make sure that we are sustainable. So we had developed disciplines around, you must have a sales pipeline. There must always be a new business pipeline. You must convert that to approved loans, and you must convert that to disbursed loans. You must manage your expenses. You must make sure that as much as possible for those people buying farms, you have sufficient collateral, because that helps you manage your provisions as well, and all the necessary disciplines just around business management. And that has paid off. And you must manage the expenses. We cannot carry on the same basis of rapid expense growth. We will grow, but we need to grow at a much more measured inflation-based rate. And just generally future-proofing the financial security or sustainability of the business. We had to embed a training and mentorship program for our customers as well as other farmers. So I think it's one thing, and a lot of people will tell you, we need financing, we need affordable financing and so on, and that is true. But I think it's really not just about financing, because I've seen people who got finances, got very beautiful farms, and destroyed them because they don't know what they are doing. So it's very important that we actually also introduce training as well as mentorship. And now it's not cheap to do that, but we have introduced a whole variety of courses, short courses, that teach people how do you keep your books, financial books, how do you keep your records, just records related to production, and how do you manage your people, how do you market your products, and things related to farming as a business enterprise. So that's very important for us. And we have a whole division that we started 1 April 2017 that is just focusing on that throughout the whole country, and I'll show you some stats in a while. And then for some clients, we actually have a network of mentors, established farmers throughout the country that we have set up, that we pay, that actually provide hand-holding to some of the identified farmers so that they can actually also succeed. So that's important. And then it's important when you must provide affordable financing that you diversify your sources of funding, that you look at all the development financing institutions across the world, and that you try and source your funding from there. Because you can't go to the open commercial market, because that's not going to be very cheap for you and for your farmers. And it's not actually ideal for farming. This is, for me, one industry where you need affordable rates. Otherwise the people are not going to make it. All right, and then I think maybe just to end this slide is that it's important to have the governances right. It's important for us that we have a board that is clear about its mandate, and we are lucky we've got a very good and strong board. It's important that we have proper risk management, and as a bank we can never get away from that. We had to onboard some skills on that as well. It's important that we are very strong in terms of compliance. We had to onboard some skills and create frameworks. It's important that we do not sit in 2019 and deal with the books of 2014, which typically happens with state-owned enterprises. We close the year, within 6 months, the books must be done, the AGM must be held. So in 2 weeks' time, we have our AGM for the year ended 31 March. Without fail, we need to do that. And it's very important that we introduce that as a standard and so on. Now, just to give you some sense then, with all those things, so you can be busy, you can do a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it's really about the dashboard. So how has the dashboard behaved? So if you look at interest income trends, you can see over the last few years there what it has done. So the first few years, and I mean, we could have gone back into history, very pedestrian. If you are growing by 1% in terms of interest income, 1 to 2%, you're actually doing nothing. So it was very important that we focused on those disciplines that I spoke about new business and disbursements. And you can see what has started to happen. 2016, 17, 6.4%. And then, the year after that, roughly 12% year-on-year growth. Now, I have deliberately not given you 2019, because in 2 weeks' time, I must share that with my shareholder. But all I can say is actually up in terms of that. So that is the one thing. And we are targeting between 11 and 12% on an annual basis, because we think if we can keep it there and keep expenses at between 7 and 8%, at least we have a sustainable business. The other one that I'd like you to look at is the expense trends. And again, we could have started from whenever, but I think what was happening was very rapid jumps in expenses. You can see 10% 2015, 17% 2016. Is that, well, now this thing must actually start coming down. So 11%, so that was a good attempt. And then 8%, and I can tell you is probably half of what you see there for the last while. So we need to bring that down. Now, of course, one must always be careful that you actually don't, squeeze this thing to the point of killing the business. But I think there are ways of really doing it and so on. Now, on the right-hand side there, we participate in an exercise for DFIs. It's prudential ratings. And this thing looks at basically 3 areas. It looks at financial management, it looks at operational efficiencies or management, and it looks at governances. And it's very important that you sort of keep moving it up and so on. And the moment you get to the 80s, then you're in a good space. So over the last 4 years, we moved from 65 to the latest. That I can share with you because it's really not a financial measure, to 81%. And it's not just accidental that it happens like that. It's because of all the measures that we have introduced in the business. And it's useful also even for people who begin to consider you for funding, to say you've got all the right things in place and so on. And then, of course, in terms of surplus trends, again, 7 million, nearly 100 million, 30 million, and I can tell you we are again up there. So it's very important that we have a surplus. Doesn't have to be obscene, but of course, a lot of what is happening now or affecting us, I think, is the legacy of non-collections and arrears and the provisions that we've had to make. So operationally, I think the underlying performance is very strong, but in terms of new business, but that legacy is still showing up in the level of provisions. But that is still a good outcome, if you look at that business. Now, April 2017, we said it's important that we also look after communal farmers. All right, this is a local solution by us as a local operator, and it can also be a benchmark for other people in Africa. Now, what is the challenge with these people? They live in rural areas. They do not have title to the land. They do not have title to property on that land. So they cannot provide collateral for the loans, but they farm. All right? So we said we introduced two products. So let's first go with one, which is salary-backed. We call it simply as no collateral, but salary-backed. We figured the people in the rural areas are actually, so they are getting credit from commercial banks. They buy these nice Toyota bakkies, they pay them off, no problem. Okay? And these things cost now 600,000, 700,000. We thought if we could give them $500,000, we have a payroll deduction with the employer. We take out credit life, so if the guy dies, policy pays out. If he's disabled, policy pays out. If he's retrenched, it pays the installments for 6 months. Then what is the problem? Then they could get the money, they could go out, they could really help themselves and set up their farming enterprises properly. They can fence off their areas properly, they can plow, they can buy livestock if that is what they want. They can modernize or mechanize agriculture. They can buy a tractor. They can buy handheld welding machines and so on. They can drill a borehole for their animals or whatever it is that they want to do. So we introduced that product end of April 2017, and to date we have disbursed 61 million rural economy. And last year in June we introduced another one, because now the issue is for those who are working it's fine. So they can get that loan and you can deduct every month. But there are farmers and all they do is farming full-time. And we needed a little bit more time to try and mitigate the risk associated with that. So we call that product Emerging Retail Financing Product. We introduced it last year and we've so far disbursed 6.2 million. We are a little bit more stringent in terms of what we look at. And once the client actually gets the loan, we link them up with a mentor as well, so that at least we set them up to succeed, rather than fail. So if you add those two together, we have now disbursed just over 67 million into the rural communal farming economies. And we will continue to do that. And guess what? My best performing loan book is the no collateral loan book. All right? Not the one where people have a farm or have given a house because they think they have collateral, they don't have to pay. These ones pay every month and you can pick it up quickly and so on. I have spoken earlier about training and mentorship. 1 April, we established this Agri-Advisory Services Division. And I think the key thing is really just to say, within that period, we've reached out to over 14,000 farmers. And you will see the kind of things that we actually do on the left-hand side there with them. 61% of those people are male and 39% are female, so very strong coming up, the female as well. They don't have to be Agribank clients, so we're not exclusive in that regard, because we see that as a service that we actually provide locally in Africa by Africans for Africans. So only 10% of the people that we have reached are actually existing Agribank clients. The other 90% are outside that range. And that's quite successful, that we provide. The brand reputation, I've spoken about poor brand. Now, if you look at 2016, there is a company called Namibia. They do this thing independently. So 2016, Agribank brand was ranked 92nd. And I think the year before that, we were not even like on the chart, all right? So 92nd amongst high communicating brands with negative mentions towards the brand, right? Now, there's a whole lot of stakeholder engagements, communication that we have put in place. And if you look at 2017, we were in the top 15, right? And if you look at 2018, we were in the top 10. And I think it's not, again, accidental. It's all the engagement, it's all the communications, it's all the reach out, and it's all the openness that we have especially also with the media and all other stakeholders. Now, I think that really just gives you some sense of the impact of some of the actions, but I don't want to let you believe that it's all done. So critical work remains ahead. So we still need to focus on collections and make sure that becomes cultural, so to speak, regularize collections and reduce arrears. We're roughly at 18% the arrears right now, but I'm targeting sort of 15 over the next 2 years. Then I'm sort of in the DFI benchmark. We need to continue to diversify our loan book for climate resilience. More and more we find being just a big cattle country is not helpful. We need to also say to farmers, you can keep your livestock, but also please do some horticulture, or some cropping, and do some charcoal, and do a whole lot of other things so that you can use everything that is on the farm. We will fund that so that you always have an income stream that actually helps you, especially when the drought comes. We need to create an enduring ability for us to actually be able to raise more affordable funding so that we can remain competitive. And all the work that we are doing is really to enable us to access such funding, especially from development banks, both in Africa and overseas, and we're busy with some of that work. And we need to continuously look at how best we can empower women and youth in this country. And most of the time, they either have very little collateral or no collateral at all, and that shouldn't actually be an issue. We are working on specific schemes for them right now, and I'm sure in the next 12 months we should have something specific for those groups. We need to increase our operational efficiencies. We've got an automation project on the go now where you actually have line of sight from application in to disbursement out. And we can actually, instead of asking where is that client's application when the client has complained, we can go in and actually find out where is it and why has it spent so much time here. And there should be automatic escalation as well, that an application doesn't stay in one stage for longer than what is necessary. We need to do that. And we need to increase the development impact of our actions. I think it's good to give loans. It's even better if the impact is sustainable, so that there are sustainable jobs created, sustainable incomes created, where livelihoods are improved, and where the environment is actually also conserved. And that, for us, is important. We're beginning to look at the whole dashboard of development impact measures as a bank. And really just embedding performance in the bank, managing talent and giving them opportunities, and continuously enhancing our brand so that it continues to be a positive and positively received brand in the market. So if I can conclude, I'd like to think that we have got a very clear and robust strategy. I'd also like to think that we have a very capable leadership team in place. We've got a very good board. We've got a very good management team. We have, over the past 3 to 4 years, recorded major wins, but critical work remains ahead. This is always a journey. It's not a sprint, it's an endurance race, and we just need to make sure that we keep strong in that race. We have clarity around our deliverables. So nobody in our business can say they don't know what to do or they don't know what is expected. We're very clear about our key measures over time. So we know where we should get to in terms of the key measures over the next 3 years. And all of these things get cascaded into all the performance contracts. And there is ongoing review and discussion around these things. So we have clarity and we are actually focused on execution. I always believe it makes no sense to have a good plan if you don't actually execute on it. So execution, for me, it's at times much better than simply having a very nicely designed plan. We have delivered over 6 million hectares of farmland, commercial farmland, into the hands of Namibians over the last 29 years, nearly 30 now, since independence, of which 3.4 million specifically went to what we call previously disadvantaged Namibians through a specific lending initiative we called Affirmative Action Loan Scheme. But we also have commercial schemes where the majority of our clients are previously disadvantaged, but we are not an exclusive bank. So we are actually there for agriculture for Namibia to make sure that we support production, we support growth in the economy, we support employment creation, and we support and secure livelihoods. So I think overall what I hope I've been able to do is to demonstrate that a state-owned enterprise or a public enterprise can be a winning organization. Can be a winning organization if it is properly led, if it is properly managed, if it is a very clear strategy, and if there is performance management and there is measure of that performance, so then it can actually deliver on its mandate, which is really to uplift the standard of living of the people in that country. That is my story.
Colleagues, we've heard it all. I don't know whether we have the right to go back home and tell our government that parastatals can be profitable. The process and the SAAs and the rest can be profitable when the strategy is good and you have the right leader. Maybe I might have to convince the government to make you the new CEO of our postal services. We have time for few questions. If there's anyone that require clarification or some questions, please. Yes.
People. Sometimes we don't like to praise ourselves. But this one must come in. 19 years ago, Mr. Ngikembwa here was heading the business administration section of Telecom Namibia. Telecom Namibia is the third largest parastatal in Namibia. And he brought in a transformation called Rundurura. Rundurura in English is transformation. And the transformation was so successful that in 2003, while I was still the chairman, because I was the chairman of Telecom Namibia then, my MBA thesis, which I've done with NBS again, was based on that project. So, Mr. Ngikembwa, I can attest from a governance point of a board that is really a transformational leader.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other? Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, Prof.
You mentioned the problem of especially the experience in West. The experience from West Africa shows that often it is the powerful people in society who take their loans and forget to pay. And it is then your business to remind them that loans should be paid. It is not always easy. especially if they have interest in the organization, like state-owned enterprises are supposed to be owned by all of us, especially the big people. How do you deal with that difficult situation when the big people are the ones who have taken loans and are not remembering that they should be paid?
Thank you very much. Any other question? Yeah?
Thank you for the inspiring presentation, sir. I just have a short question. I understand you said you are working on diversifying your loan book. I just wanted to understand if you are just diversifying the range of products that you are offering within the agricultural sector, or you are also branching out to the other sectors. And if that's the case, what percentage that does agriculture get compared to other sectors? Thank you.
I saw a hand. Yeah, the last one.
Yeah, thank you very much. The concept it's good. But my question is the sustainability. Especially now, Namibia, it's a very dry country. I'm worried how the client will be able to pay back their loan. Do you have any strategies in place in terms of sustainabilities if our country continue the same ways it is now in terms of drought? One point is water issue. Do you have any strategy that you are trying to invest in the water to make water available to the farmers, so that at the end of the day you are also ensured that your client have the product, and at the end of the day they were able to pay your loan? Do you have those strategies?
Yo, he's not God. So he doesn't, he cannot make rain fall. Okay, Mr. Sakara, I think you've got all the questions, so.
All right, thank you. And thank you for your applause. And I fully take on board the suggestion that there are lessons that I need to put out there. I think that is true, and I think that is true for this entity called AgriBank, but it's also true for, I think, a number of other roles that I've played. Because remember, I started in a state-owned enterprise. I did private sector, and I'm back, I think, for national duty really in state-owned enterprise again. And I'll try and find a way of sharing those lessons. So I think that is good. The low repayments, powerful people forget to pay. I like the expression. They forget to pay. Yeah, but I think for me it's a combination of, when you are genuine about something, I think you pretty soon will be able to convince people that it's not about individuals, it's about the principle that the bank must be supported, and the way that it needs to be supported is through repayment, because then it is able to assist the next person who is looking for a new loan, but it's also able to re-assist the same person if later on they actually have a need to expand or upgrade so that they can farm better. And I think that's a message that I've consistently tried to put out there at every forum where I had an opportunity. But it was also important to make sure that from a stakeholder engagement point of view, it's important to engage specifically the shareholder and understand what needs to be done and why it needs to be done, and understand that it's not going to be easy, because and when I say important people, it's not necessarily politicians. I mean, I think it's all across society, where you have people that clearly can do something and can pay back, but may not actually have paid enough attention to that. So shareholder understanding and support was quite critical for us, even before we actually began the initiative. And I must say that we're quite lucky in that regard, because we have got the support of the shareholder, who is government, from the top, I think, to the line minister, in terms of this needs to be done. We also recognize it's going to take a while, because I think the level of arrears that we are talking about and the age of that is quite high and old, if I can put it that way. But that is important. That support is important, but also important that one has endurance, because when you begin with this thing, you can expect that there will be attacks all over the place, there will be lies spread all over the place, there will be personalization, of actions all over the place. But I think you need to consistently just explain this is not about individuals, this is actually about the institution. And I think thirdly, it's important to extend the hand of the bank to the clients to say, you may not have visited us for the last 10 years, but you have an opportunity to come in, and we would sit with you, we would look at what is possible, and we will agree on a repayment plan that I think is both possible for you as well as practical and to the bank as well. Of course, if you are looking at a repayment plan that's going to go over the next 100 years, that may not be practical. But I think if we can look at something that is going to happen, within your lifetime, then we are prepared to actually discuss. And we've been doing that. And I think from those conversations and the rearrangements that we've made, the message had spread that actually you can go. This guy is really approachable, and he can listen, and he can actually look at options. He can even make suggestions to you, and you can start repaying. So I think practically agreeing with people and giving them a chance to restart is also very important, because your message actually goes out much more, not from what you say in public, but what people who have interacted with you actually would go and say. So I think that is on that. But also, where it is necessary, you actually go the full length. So if a person doesn't pay and they have a farm and you have a bond over that farm, at some point you need to go to court, you need to get judgment, you need to get an execution order, you need to arrange a sale, so that people understand this is also just not talk. It can actually happen. The unfortunate thing on one side and the fortunate on the other is, so after all this time, on the day of the auction, the people find the money, so you actually go all that length just, for somebody to find the money, which was really not necessary. But, so it's engagement, it's building support, it's about giving people opportunity, but it's also actually saying this is not just all talk. And I think a combination of those things, really does deliver some success. Now, the question around diversification of the loan book, are we just in agriculture or are we branching into other sectors? I think from a lending point of view, our mandate is agriculture and related fields. I've tried to explain. We would not suddenly find ourselves in something totally out of agriculture, then we'll be operating outside our mandate. But I think what is important is that instead of just people understanding that agriculture is livestock, and understanding that agriculture in the south of Namibia is small stock and in the rest of Namibia is large stock, which is actually quite susceptible to drought, they need to begin to understand that you are not only a farmer if you are in livestock, but you are also a farmer if you do some maize. You can probably do 10 hectares of that. If you also have time, you can also do vegetables. And it's important that you diversify into other things, and it's important that you diversify also from the point of view of it's not just rain-fed crop farming, but in a lot of areas you have underground water. You can take it out via boreholes, and you can actually irrigate. And all of a sudden you have two, continuous harvesting, throughout the year, depending on what you are actually growing and when. And that diversification for us is important. It is important for us to share information, which we do even at the training and mentorship sessions that we have. That is not just about livestock, but it's about all the other things. It's about poultry as well, and that is quite easy to set up. It has its own other challenges in terms of managing diseases and what have you. But the farmer must actually be set up in such a way that they have multiple streams of income. And the other thing, and that I think touches on the question also about me being God and all the other things that I'm doing. So diversification is one way of enabling clients to repay their loans, all right? So livestock, it's crop farming, but it's also using what else is on the farm. So on a lot of our farms, there is a lot of bush invasion, all right? And this bush can be useful for pure wood, which can give you income, but also for charcoal production. And we do give loans for that as well. Especially for equipment to do charcoal. And charcoal is quite a big industry and growing very rapidly in this country. I can bet my last dollar that in the next 7 years, this is going to be a multi-billion-dollar industry in Namibia, and whoever is not in it is actually going to lose out. And therefore, so that kind of diversification would give income streams to the farmer, so that if the one leg of livestock does not actually do well, at least the others do well. And when you control the bush on the farm, I almost don't want to use the term debush, but when you control the bush, what you are actually doing is you are enhancing the carrying capacity of the farm, which means you can actually grow more grass and keep more animals and be able to withstand dry periods better, actually. So we encourage diversification. We do finance water infrastructure, especially boreholes, that enables people to take water out and even be able to grow fodder throughout the year. And we do give loans for wood and charcoal production. And a combination of all these things will actually enable our farmers to farm better. And then, of course, we reinforce that with the skills that we provide through our advisory division. How do you manage your livestock? How do you grow your feed, even at the level of the crop, and all of those things? Because it's much more about knowledge these days than simply being a farmer that's going to make you survive. So I hope that answers that question. I have a big passion about taking the water out of the aquifers, but that's a long one, because I think actually we can turn Namibia into a green zone, because we've got a lot of water underground. Ohangwena 1 and 2, those aquifers can actually feed Namibia or supply Namibia with water for the next 400 years. You've got Oshivelo, Eastern Zambezi, you've got the Kars area, you've got Stamprit. So there's a lot of water actually underground. And all we need to do as a country is invest in it, take it out, distribute it throughout the whole country, and make some of that water available for irrigation. And all of a sudden, you should really not cry about rain anymore. Of course, you need it to recharge the aquifers, but we can actually de-risk this country from drought if we just invest in water and water infrastructure throughout the country. So diversification is about the agricultural sector. We are looking at other sort of non-interest income, but that's not really loan book generated income, but our mandate is in agriculture. So I don't know if I have left any question out, but I'm quite happy to take on additional questions if there is still time.
Thank you very much. I don't think we have much time. We are behind by 30 minutes. and because people overslept. And so we thank you very much for your presentation. And colleagues, the presentation will also be up. You want to ask a question?
I think, yes, leadership and skills are important, but I also think sort of a strong ethical lead from within these organizations is important, because I don't think Agribank's got anything different from other parastatals or institutions in South Africa or Namibia. I think it's a will to do the right thing and to serve your community, serve the country honestly, that also makes a difference. I don't know Zakaria very well on a personal level, but I do work with his wife in the business school, and we find the same thing, and that it's very easy to become, from an ethical point of view, it's very easy to be sidetracked. And once you become sidetracked, it becomes, the institution quickly kind of falls apart. So I think not only should Zakaria be commended for his leadership, but also for taking a strong ethical position in his leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We usually give to our speakers, and I'll call on Esley to present you with the ICBMD gift for being here with us today.
Should I say Mr. Ngikembwe, or Daddy as we call him at home? Mr. Ngikembwe, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and speak at our conference, and this is just our token of appreciation. Thank you. We just need to open it so that we can share. Let me open it.
Yes, yesterday we said to make sure that we are not you may either put it in your office or your sitting room, so that anytime you look at it, you will remember ICBMD 2019 in Namibia. But we appreciate your time with us today. Colleagues, we are behind time, and we need to quickly grab a cup of coffee and move to the next section. The next section, we are only two venues, this venue and venue B, which is upstairs over there. And the chairpersons for the two venues, Dr. Naidu will be in venue A, which is here, and Dr. Brewer will be in venue B. Then after lunch, is it after lunch or after? We got a tea break now. We will have Professor White in this venue and Professor Iwu in venue B. Then late in the afternoon, we will have Dr. Bibi here in venue A and Professor Greenfield in venue B. So, colleagues, thank you for